A lot of these crowds are not just union members, but folks from across the community, and I think that's an opportunity for us as union members to be visible, to be leaders, and to get to know other folks.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Hey, Jacob and Adam. This is Gus from Portland, Oregon. I am on the board at a local nonprofit here in Portland, and we are in the process of trying to hire an executive director. And the reason I'm calling to tell you guys this is I was just listening to last week's episode, hadn't gotten around to it until just today, and just thinking about the context of the Big Beautiful Bill, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, we have gotten so many applicants for this executive director position that we're hiring for that are people who are coming from old folks' homes. With the dismantling, the threatened dismantling of Medicare, it's just terrifying to watch all these folks applying for this position that they aren't qualified for, but just watching people seeming to flee positions that are funded by Medicare, and just watching folks prepare for the dismantling is really, really terrifying, especially as someone who has a parent who's in a retirement facility. I don't have really anything beyond that, but just, I don't know, it seemed like a harbinger of bad things, and I don't know, wanted to pass it along. Hope you have a wonderful day. All power to the workers. Bye.
All right. Yeah, I really appreciate the voicemail from Gus from Portland. If you want to leave a voicemail, 844-899-TVLR, you can do that anytime throughout the week. We would love to hear your reports. You know, it's great to hear from folks from different communities and get a sense of what's happening in different industries. I think that's probably is a harbinger of things to come. I imagine there are a lot of people who are feeling really disrupted in their employment right now. Excuse me. I know there are folks already who do work in the nonprofit sector who have, either lost jobs or their jobs are under threat because of cuts to grant funding, and maybe there's a whole nother conversation to be had about the reliance on federal grants and things like that, and the strings that are attached and what can be taken away. And I think it's fair to say also that we're going to be looking at a lot of disruption in elder care and other sectors that are very dependent on Medicaid and Medicare. Medicaid in particular is really, really under threat right now. And a lot of folks depend on that, whether it's folks with disabilities, whether it's children. In Alabama, for example, many births are paid for by Medicaid. That is a big problem. If we're going to have serious cuts to the services, to the funding, it also is going to leave our state budgets in a hole, because much of the cuts to Medicaid and to food stamps through SNAP is going to add additional funding requirements on the state, if they're even able to or willing to meet some of those costs. And I think in a state like Alabama, as with much of the South, it's debatable if they even have the desire to do that, to maintain these programs. But it's absolutely going to have a devastating impact. And, I think if you're in a job in a sector where these federal programs, one way or another, help fund your job, whether you directly work for one of these agencies or the government, or if you work for a nursing home or a hospital or any other sort of entity that's receiving these federal funds, I mean, your employment is looking more precarious, and I think that's a really scary situation to be in for millions of Americans right now. And I think it also emphasizes the importance of union contracts, and that's one of the reasons why we talk about it on this show so much, because you don't know what's going to happen in any job, and bosses can change. revenue can change. All board of directors can change, right? All the different pieces of the puzzle that funds your day-to-day existence, those things can change. And if you don't have a union contract with language in there that is protecting you and your coworkers in the case of a layoff or in the case of reduction in force, if that's deemed necessary, those are really important provisions that you hope you'll never have to use. But it's really, really good to have them when things hit the fan and people may be losing their jobs, right? Because if you don't have a union contract, it's going to be up to the boss's whim and discretion. And maybe you went out on that, but maybe you don't. And it's really, really important to unionize now. If you do not have a union contract, and it's not to say that contracts are the end-all be-all of what a union is about, but it is such an important tool that we have to protect ourselves and our coworkers. So I would just encourage anyone listening, if you're not already organized, there's no better time than now to get started, especially when we are looking at more precarious employment throughout multiple sectors, because we have also had disruption in manufacturing and various industries due to tariffs, and tariffs are on, then they're off, then they're back on again, that sort of thing. So again, having a union contract, having a union where you and your coworkers have come together to build power together and to sit down at the table with the boss to actually get binding language in writing, that is really necessary. I think we do we have any callers on the line? Okay, no, I think they dropped off. I did want to just mention a couple of things in reaction to our interview with President Demonstein. He mentioned the No Kings rallies, and there are over a dozen that are scheduled in Alabama today. Really, really proud to see so much activity happening across the state, including in some smaller towns that you might not expect. I saw Dadeville, Alabama has an action. Fort Payne over in the northeast corner of the state has something going on today. And we've seen nationally a lot of unions have, of course, endorsed these actions and this mobilization. Everybody from the UE to the IFPTE. IATSE put out a very, very strong statement in the last week or so as well about the general context in which these are happening, right? The federal raids and military crackdowns on student-led protests, how it jeopardizes our freedoms, our communities, and our jobs. So that, I think it's interesting that a lot of these crowds are not just union members, but folks from across the community. And I think that's an opportunity for us as union members to be visible and to be leaders in our community and to get to know other folks, right? Especially here in the South where our union density is pretty low. Alabama, we do have a higher union density than Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi. Love to brag about that. Love to rub that in their face. But it's still far too low, right? We're talking less than 10% of workers are in a union here. And 10% is the national average.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
So here in the South, it's far lower, and we as unions have less visibility. A lot of folks who are natural allies of our unions aren't very familiar with us. They may not know any union people. They may not know any of the locals in their community. And that's something we all can be working on. And, activities like today, where there are nationwide mobilizations of folks out here in the community standing up for justice, that is an opportunity for us as labor to get out there in the community and let folks know who we are, what we're about, and of course, spread the word about how we are under attack, from our collective bargaining rights to our very jobs, to our rights to protest, our rights to free speech. And there were also some interesting things happening over the last week in terms of veterans, because there were union members rallying in D.C. on June 6th to defend VA healthcare from privatization and austerity. You had unions like the IAM, the Machinists, CWA, National Nurses United, all were out there. And, I think that's important to bring up as well. Our government, has used the military in many ways over the decades, over the centuries. But taking care of veterans is often a much tougher sell. A lot of politicians are eager to go to war. They're eager to use the military to crack down on protest, but actually taking care of veterans and their health care and their needs after their service or even during their service is often a tougher sell. So the Veterans Administration not only does important work to take care of veterans, it is an important employer, right, with unionized workers. And these workers are under threat. Their ability to take care of their patients and their ability to do their jobs effectively are under threat. And so these aren't separate fights. Ultimately, it's the same fight. We're all out here fighting for a better life for ourselves, our families, our communities, for working class people. And the same forces that want to gut healthcare and the safety net are often the same forces that want to send poor and working class kids off to war, to fight halfway across the world. So, I think that's important that labor is showing up in those fights as well, that we're standing up not just for the bread and butter issues, but for civil liberties and international solidarity as well. And, so shout out to all the unions and others who did participate. Steve Early and Suzanne Gordon just put out a great article in Jacobin about some of the issues with the Veterans Administration and some of the efforts by union workers to fight back. So do want to check that out. Highly recommend it. And as we're wrapping up here, I do see we have at least a caller. Oh, no, we don't have a caller. Never mind. So I wanted to just thank everyone for tuning in today. Thank everyone who has donated, contributed, left voicemails, participated in the chat. Whatever you do to support this program, it really is appreciated. We're doing this as a side hustle, a side project, right? We have full-time jobs. We're full-time union members and labor leaders. And we do this to try to get working class perspectives out here in the media. What we found in Alabama and across the South is that the media does not really represent working class people, right? The media is a corporate entity, and often the stories of unions, the stories of workers organizing, the stories of workers fighting back for better lives, it's not really told. Or if it is told, it's not told from our perspective. And so we do what we do to try to get a different perspective out there. And we think that it's important that solidarity is something that we spread continually, right? And it's something that folks can tune in every Saturday and they can hear a couple union guys talk about the power of solidarity, the power of organizing, and hear from a whole array of guests, from rank and file workers to, as you heard, we had a national president on the show, we had a rank and file union member on the show, and everybody in between. And we try to do that. So if you are interested in being part of this project, there are different ways you can do that. You can, of course, call in. You can call in live, as people have, 844-899-TVLR. You can leave us a voicemail at that same number. You can send us a note, tvlr.fm/contact. If there's something you heard that you're interested in, or if you want to push back, you have criticism, we're happy to take that. We appreciate the engagement. And, but, just listening, liking, sharing, all that kind of stuff really makes a difference. We can't do this show without your support. This is a grassroots operation. We don't have Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or someone like that sponsoring the show. We have to hustle to raise the money to do it, and we have to spend the time to do it. And we do it because We know there are people out there listening who appreciate what we're trying to put out here. The need for labor to have our own media is so dire, especially now, right? It's really important that we be able to tell our own stories. And as a student of history, I'm always, amazed by the amount of media that the labor movement used to have in this country. It was very common to have a labor newspaper in your community. And now, you're lucky if you have a newspaper in your community, much less a labor newspaper, right? And it's not to say that we have to bring back the newspapers, but we have to do something. We have to be out there as labor, telling our story, building media that is for us and by us and about us. And so, with that, I'll also make my last plug, which is for Means TV. We are really proud to be participating as part of the Means TV cooperative. Happy to be on the air on Means TV now. That was a new thing that started, recently, and really want to lift up what they're doing, because they are building that sort of independent worker-owned media that we really need, because we can't just rely on the corporations and the billionaires to have these platforms and to be able to tell our stories. So shout out to Means TV. You can subscribe with our discount code, TVLR. I believe you get 20% off, so it's a great deal, but it's well worth it. Means Morning News is worth it by itself.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.